Mataji's.
Vishrami punah punah Bhutagramam amyam Krishnam Avastam prakrite vasha Prakritim swamavastaya Vishrajami punah punah Bhutagramam imam Krishnam
Prakriti, the material nature, swam, of my personal self, avastabhya, punah punaha, again and again, bhutagramam, all the cosmic manifestations, even these, Krishna, in total, avasham, automatically, prakriti, of the force of nature, vasha, under obligation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Please hear the purport. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes. And into each universe, the Lord again enters as the Bodhakashaya Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Shirodakashaya Vishnu. And that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature. And as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Man, animal, beast, birds, everything is simultaneously created. Because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again. And all this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of God. And after creating different species of life, He has no connections with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities. And so the Lord does not become involved in it. Let's read the last line again. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities. And so the Lord does not become involved in it. Jai Shri Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports Ki.
Jai.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manodishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadhanarangatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauri Vishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Shri Gurudeva ki So this shloka is very powerful because Krishna declares unequivocally that the entire cosmic order as we see it is actually under me. When something is under someone, actually it means that person is in charge, isn't it? Otherwise, why would something be under them? And Krishna then goes on to say in the next line, under my will. This is very important. When we have a will, for example, normally people write wills, before they die, right? And when they write a will, what they mean is, it is their wish that something must happen, right? That's why they write a will. I will that something must happen, I will that this must go there, this must go here, and therefore Krishna's will is actually his direction. Krishna's will is actually what he wants, not what we want, but what he wants. So here it is stated, under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. So this whole cosmic manifestation does not come once. It comes over and over again. Which is why in Vedic cosmology, our understanding and measurement of time is cyclical. In Western ideas, time is linear, right? It starts and it ends, and then there's no more. But in the Vedic concept of time is cyclical, which means we have come to this world many, many times. And this world has been annihilated and will be created many, many times. This is something we have to remember. And it is automatically manifested. It is not just manifested. In other words, Krishna is so powerful, he can put this manifestation of this cosmic order on automatic mode. When we drive now, right? The car is on automatic mode, isn't it? Do you remember the days when we used to drive when it was not automatic? Then you had to, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, right? And actually, frankly, I prefer that. I don't know how you feel. Now it feels too easy. Just move down. But for Krishna, it is as easy as that, right? You just have to, he automatically, that means without any effort, it is automatically manifested again and again. Punaha, again and again. When something comes again and again, that means, it will actually come in the same form. This is something we forget. Therefore, when Chitraketu Maharaj had asked the question, or rather when Narada Muni had asked the question to the child, the soul of the child who had left the body, and Chitraketu Maharaj was mourning for his child, he asked the child, please, the soul, come into the heart of this body of the child, because your father is calling for you. And immediately at that point, the soul re-entered the body of the dead child and animated it. And the first thing the soul said was, which father? In which birth? And the moment he asked that two questions, Chitraketu Maharaj came to his senses. So this point is very important. Punaha, punaha. It means when something is again and again coming, actually we have experienced it. We are all here in this material world thinking that whatever we're experiencing for the first time. The joys, the sorrows, the ups, the downs, the slaps, everything. But we don't realize, Shastras have told us, we have experienced all of this before. Which then leads us to think carefully this important inquiry. Why are we coming back over and over again to get the same slaps, to get the same fleeting joys and fleeting sorrows? Why? This is the start of our inquiry. This is the start of our spiritual journey. From that just two words, Puna Punaha, we should come to understand this point. This is what we should understand when we read Puna Punaha. That's why every line in Bhagavad Gita is to be studied. Every word in Bhagavad Gita should not be taken for granted. So that's why it is stated, it is automatically manifested. When something is manifested, it also shows us another important thing. That which is manifested also has to be unmanifested. When you say something is manifested, you are presupposing that before that it was not manifested, isn't it? When you say a child has been born, what you're saying now is before that the child was not born, it was not existing, but now it has come to be. So when Krishna is saying that by my will, it is automatically, it is manifested, that means there was a time when all of this was not manifested, right? And now Krishna ends the verse by saying, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end. So Krishna's will is very powerful. His will can bring birth, His will can bring death. So we must always understand that we are not here by accident. This is a very important point. Don't think that we are here by accident. You know this Big Bang theory that everyone speaks about? It's an insult to humanity actually. You know, that means we are a result of an accident. That's what we are. But actually there is no such thing as accident in this world. Everything is arranged. And this point we must understand. When we talk about the will, how many times has the will been used here? Under my will one time, and at the end, my will again. So 2 times Krishna is emphasizing his will. Why? Because in the first Chatushloka of Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's 2.9.33, Krishna makes it very emphatically clear to Brahma. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sat asat param paschar aham yat etacha no avashishyeta so amyaham. This is a very important verse. One of the most primary verses that we have to learn. And here Krishna says, Aham evasam evagre. He tells to Brahma, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead. And what is it that he's saying? I was existing before the creation. So that is why Krishna has the will to create. Because he was existing before that. None of us can be claiming to exist before the creation. Only Krishna existed before creation. Then Krishna goes on to say, at that time there was nothing but myself. See the point? There was nothing but myself. In other words, when Krishna was present, there was nobody created yet. Sometimes people ask, who created Krishna? But the answer is simple. Krishna is self-manifested. And because he's self-manifested, no one can create him. He has always been present, and he will always be present. The buck stops with Krishna, so to speak. So Krishna says, I was alone, and only I was there. There was no material nature, Krishna is saying here. This whole cosmic order that we speak about, that we will speak about now, is actually about material nature. And Krishna makes it very clear that actually at that time, there was no material nature. So we are very clear. No material nature, nothing except Krishna. And now Krishna says that this material nature is the cause of this creation. And yet it was not here before. So how can we say then that material nature is the cause of who we are? It is Krishna who is the cause of material nature. And therefore material nature is coming from Krishna. This we must be clear. Otherwise, some philosophies, they say that material nature is the be-all and end-all of everything. Right? In our Bhagavatam discussion today, we read that actually. And it says there in the purport, that actually some philosophers say material nature is the be-all and end-all. We start with material nature, we will end with material nature. But no, material nature, you will learn in a while, is actually coming very much from Krishna. And then Krishna says, that which you see now also is also the personality of God. It is also Krishna, right? And after it is annihilated, Krishna says, it is also I. Only I will remain. So frankly speaking, what is the implication of this? If we understand that Krishna is here before us, He's here with us, and He will be here after us, why should we turn to anybody else for strength except Krishna? Why should we have any other shelter except Krishna? Right? There's a beautiful prayer, I'm not going to chant it, but I'm just going to say it. In the 5th canto, right, the residents of Jambudvip, they offer prayers. And in one of the prayers, Lakshmi Devi says very nicely this point. She says, my dear Lord, all of us wives, we are always looking to husbands for protection and husbands for shelter. But actually these same husbands cannot protect us because they are under the power of material nature. They will also die. So what is the use of these husbands then? Very frankly Lakshmi Devi is saying it. No offense to the husbands here. But actually she's saying frankly, what is the use of all these husbands? The husbands can't protect us. In fact, sometimes I'm seeing the wives are protecting the husbands. Right? So therefore, Lakshmi Devi says, it is best that we turn to Krishna, who is the supreme husband. And he should protect us. So we learn from this shloka, Aham Evasam Evagre, that actually the source of our protection is also the source of our annihilation. We must accept that. In other words, we have no will. Our will is subordinate to Krishna. It's very, very important point. If therefore, remember, if someone is existing before creation, and is existing with us even now, and he will exist after, then we should understand that the whole cosmic order is really under him. We don't have to turn to anyone else for protection. Sometimes we feel very sad because people hurt us, people upset us, people who we depend on are not dependable. But it is our fault. Because we are depending on that which cannot be depended on. Right? The fish is in the net, and another fish is in the net, and that fish tells the other fish, don't worry, I will take you out of the net. But that fish says, man, you are in the net, but you are telling me that you will take me out of the net. In other words, this is our situation. I am telling you, Prabhu, don't worry, I will liberate you. I am not liberated. I am stuck here with you. So why are you wasting your time with me? Better you spend your time with Krishna. That's why our devotional service is very clear. We should only depend on Krishna. That is the import of this shloka today. The second point that we should understand is this point where Krishna says, under me, or is actually under my will. This is very important. The will of Krishna exceeds every power known to man in this world. This is a very important point. And no one can go against the will of Krishna. It is stated very nicely that we may intend something. When we intend to do something, we intend. But Krishna will super intend. In other words, we may have one intention, but Krishna is superintendent. Superintendent actually means, if you break it up, that means he superintends. Krishna is the superintendent. That we must accept. So we may have a plan to come to Gauranga Center. But when we reach Gauranga Center, we should not think that it is because of my intent that we are here. Your desire was important, but his will is the final important thing. If he desires that you cannot come for whatever reason, then halfway here, car may break down. Halfway here, you may decide, oh, I'm not feeling well, I have to go back. Just before you come here, you may have a fight with your wife or husband and you both go back home. It can happen. It happened one time. I invited a couple to come here and they said they were coming. 15 minutes passed, I was waiting. Then he called me very embarrassed, said, Prabhu, I'm fighting with my wife now. So we'll come back later. And they never came back. So this is very important. We may plan so many things, but it doesn't mean that it will happen. It can only happen if Krishna wants it to happen. Which brings us to a very important point. Bhagavatam tells us, no one can go against the will of the Lord. Because the will of the Lord is His order. If you look at the verse 5.1.12 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada liked the shloka. He quoted it very, very well and very often actually. You can chant it with me. Natasya kaschi tapasa vidyayama na yoga vidyena manishayama naivarta dharmei parata svatova kritam vihantum tanubhe vibhuya. Actually, it's so nice that we are chanting these shlokas. Now that we have a taste for the chanting of the holy name, this congregation must develop a deep taste for learning shlokas from Bhagavatam and from taking shelter of deep study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. We must develop that culture so that we become a worm in the pages of Bhagavatam. In any difficulty, we just turn to Bhagavatam and all answers are there. And when we are in difficulty, we help each other to find verses in Bhagavatam. So you see this shloka, how nice this shloka is. There, it is very nicely stated. It is Brahma who declares this to King Priyavrata. And he says, one cannot avoid, you cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not by strength of your severe austerities, not by your exalted Vedic education, nor the power of your mystic yoga, nor the physical prowess, nor even your intellectual activities. No. None of this can help us avoid the order of Krishna. We may be very powerful, but all this cannot avoid the order of Krishna. Nor can we use his power of religion. Even the power of religion cannot stop his will. This is very important. We think religion is powerful, but actually religion is coming from Krishna. So we cannot stop Krishna's will. His material opulences also we cannot use to stop his will. By any other means also we cannot. A man cannot by himself or with the help of others to defy the orders of Krishna. This is not possible for any living being. Isn't it very clear? From Lord Brahma right to an end. Which is very clear now. No one can avoid the order of Krishna. That is why in 1133 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mayai vaite nihata purva evam nimitta mata bhavya sabyasachi. Krishna told Arjuna, you are sabyasachi. You are the greatest wielder of the bow and arrow. No one can defeat you. And yet you must understand, it is by my order that every single one whose arrow found its mark, they perished not because of your arrow. They perished because of my arrangement. There is an important distinction. You may shoot the arrow, but for the person to die, that's up to Krishna. Right? That's up to Krishna. Sometimes, have you noticed how someone may fall very sick? They may appear like they're going to die, but they don't die. Someone may not be very sick, and all of a sudden they collapse and they die. It happens so often, isn't it? So therefore, that is the will of Krishna. Shooting an arrow doesn't make you the cause of something. You become an instrument in his hands. This is important. We may take a class, but the delivery is up to Krishna. The preparation is ours, but the delivery and how it touches your heart is according to his will. It is not in our will. Our will is subordinate to his will. That is the import of 1133. And therefore, Krishna becomes supreme. And we become nimitta mata. We become instruments. If we have that mood, then whenever we come to Gauranga Center, we'll be very peaceful. And we should always be at the mercy of Krishna, and we should be the instruments of his devotees. That way, we don't fight with each other also. If someone is very advanced, we become their instrument. Teach us, guide us, so that we learn. That is the mood of a devotee. And by his will, don't forget, Krishna performed wondrous things. Indra had his will, isn't it, to destroy Vrindavan Dham. Remember, He brought his Samvartaka clouds, and then he came, and the rains were so powerful, Vrindavan was flooded in a matter of hours. But what was Krishna's will? Krishna's will, live Govardhan Hill. Give shelter to Govardhan, give shelter to all the residents of Vrindavan, and oh, by the way, Govardhan, the residents of Vrindavan had been praying to have uninterrupted time with Krishna. Indra, thank you for being my instrument. Because you have become my instrument, I could hold Govardhan Hill. Everybody could be having a nice, wonderful time with me while you were very, very frustrated and still trying to break Vrindavan down. This is Krishna's will. Gandhari had her will, isn't it? She wanted to shield her son Duryodhana and asked him to come naked before her. And who did he meet in the middle of the night as he walked naked? He met Krishna. He took one turn and he saw Krishna. And Krishna smiled at him and said, Duryodhana, what are you doing walking around with no clothes on? And Duryodhana said, oh, I'm going to see my mother. And Krishna smiled and said, why in the world are you going to see your mother with no clothes on? And he said, yeah, actually that's not very proper. Because he didn't want to tell Krishna why he was going there. So he said, let me take the gamcha and I will walk. And when he went, he forgot to take out the gamcha. Who gives us memory? Krishna. Who gives us remembrance? Krishna. And who gives us forgetfulness? Krishna. So if you have a blank out when you're sitting for your exam, at least you can come home and quote the shloka and tell your parents what to do. Remembrance is coming from Krishna, isn't it? Forgetfulness also came with Krishna. What to do, Before they get really upset, you do that. Duryodhana did that. He realized now that Krishna made him forget. He made him forget. If you remember Karna, he was remembering the mantras to summon the Shakti weapon, keeping it for his arch enemy Arjuna, right till the very end. And then what happened? At the very end, right, the rut of his wheel, of the wheel of the chariot would get stuck. He would come out, he would try to move it, he would become desperate, and he would forget all the mantras for Shakti weapon. And who do you think did that? It was Krishna. Gatokach, such a powerful son of Bhima, isn't it? And so great, Bhima and Hidimbi, I think, yes. And he was so powerful. And yet, despite his great power, Krishna arranged that Karna would have to shoot the weapon and kill Gatokach. But the weapon that he shot was shot so that it would not be used on Arjuna. And so at the end of the day, when all the Pandavas were crying and crying because Gatokach had died, Krishna was smiling and smiling. And Arjuna came up to him and said, how can you be so heartless? How can you smile when Gatokach is gone? And Krishna smiled to say, Gatokach has attained the highest planets because he has followed my will. He was created to be aligned with my will so that Karna would not have a chance to defeat Arjuna. Now Arjuna, the battle and victory is assured. Is assured. So there is no loss when we as devotees are ready to surrender to the will of Krishna. You see the point? There is nothing to lose actually. The moment Arjuna surrendered to the will of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he became the greatest warrior known to the history of the world. And yet, he was completely satisfied. This is very important. So we may have a will, but never test the will of Krishna. Never test it. Because if you test it, 5.1.12 will tell us, like we said, no one from Brahma to the end can actually do anything with Krishna. So this is the point of the will of Krishna. Now, Prabhupada takes pains in the purport to speak about how this cosmic order actually comes into manifestation. And this whole manifestation is so beautifully elaborated in the third canto in Sankhya philosophy, right? Somewhere in the 26, 27 chapters, the whole beautiful order, right, of how this material world comes is beautifully given. But what we must understand from Shastras is this entire cosmic order is ultimately coming from Krishna. First being ever is Krishna, always there. From Krishna comes Balaram. And after Balaram comes as his first expansion, Balaram then expands to become Sankarshan. And after Sankarshan comes into being, from Sankarshan comes Narayana. And after Narayana comes, then from Narayana expands second Sankarshan. Right? Second Sankarshan. Sankarshan part 2. After second Sankarshan comes, then from second Sankarshan comes the Purusha avatars. Now the Purusha avatar, the first Purusha avatar, as Prabhupada says here, comes Mahavishnu, known as Karano Dakashayi Vishnu. Karano Dakashayi Vishnu is Vishnu who is very, very, very large. And he's lying down, and from him, all the planets are emanating. Not planets, sorry, universes. So as the Lord breathes out, universes come. As the Lord breathes in, universes are annihilated. And yet it takes millions of years, billions of years for our time for these universes to be annihilated. But at his level, at Karado Dakashayi Vishnu's level, it is a moment of a breath. Think about it. A moment of a breath. That's it. Right? That's how powerful it is. So sometimes people say, Mahavishnu or Karano Dakashayi Vishnu is very high up the hierarchy. But from Bhagavatam, can you understand where he is now? Krishna, Balaram, Sankarshan, Narayana, second Sankarshan, then Mahavishnu. Imagine how far removed from Krishna is Mahavishnu. That's why Mahavishnu is a plenary of the plenary. That's the amazing thing. He's so powerful in this entire world, but he's a plenary of the plenary. That's amazing. Now, after each universe is created, right, Krishna is so perfect, each universe, he then enters into the universe again. And now he comes as Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu. He comes as Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu. And Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu, he lies down on the causal ocean of milk. And in the corner part of the universe, this part is known as Svetadvip. And there he lies down in this beautiful ocean of milk. Our oceans in the world very, very salty. Right? Try drinking it, you'll die very fast. But imagine going to an ocean where there is milk. And believe me, this milk is perfect milk, right? With perfect natural sugar. So imagine going to an ocean and jumping into the ocean, and you wouldn't mind actually drinking the ocean milk from time to time, isn't it? This is the beautiful ocean of Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu. And as he lies down in that wonderful ocean, all the ingredients that are going to be manifested, they are there. They are present. Remember the word manifested, unmanifested? All the ingredients are there, but they haven't been manifested yet. And in that situation, all these ingredients, which number 24, sometimes given as 25, Prabhupada says, but mostly 24, they are all in a state of unmanifest. And they are known as Pradhana. Pradhana. Pradhana means a state of unmanifest. Like this Gauranga Center building, before it was built, it was all bricks, cement, metal, everything. So what they would have done is they would have put all the things here. They would have done piling. All that is unmanifested. So before this came up, it was in what we call the Pradhana state. Okay? Now BTO flats, right? Before they come up, Pradhana state. I'm using that to make it easier. Of course, they are nowhere close to Pradhana. But it is a Pradhana state, right? Now, what happens? The ingredients must come together. And so, therefore, all these ingredients are created by who? Krishna. Please remember, Brahma doesn't create these ingredients. We call him creator, but actually he's a matchmaker. He's a matchmaker. He puts them in different computations, but he never creates them. That's why these elements are not coming from him. So in Pradhana, Bhagavatam says, there are 5 gross elements. They are the 5 that come. And they are earth. Right? Earth comes first. After earth comes water. After water comes fire. After fire comes air. After air comes ether. There's an order. It starts very gross and gradually it becomes finer and finer until it becomes ether. Okay? Now at the same time when earth is created, what happens is the subtle element is also created of earth. The element that comes with earth is smell. Gandha. Right? That's why we always smell the smell of earth. Now, when fire comes, we get the sense, after earth comes water. When water comes, we have the sense of taste. That's why we can taste water. And then when fire comes, we have the sense of color. Right? Imagine if you tasted fire. See, Krishna is so perfect. It comes that way, you see. You smell the earth is very nice. Right? But why smell water? You rather taste water. And when you see fire, you recognize fire by its color. It's very unique color. And then after that comes air. And from air comes what we call taste. It's very beautiful. Touch. What did I say? Touch, right? You can't taste air. But you can touch. You can feel the presence of air. Isn't it true? When air is moving, you can feel its presence. You can't see it, but you can sense it. That's the sense of touch, tactile. And the last one is ether. And ether, you will understand it by sound. When you have sonic boom, right? It actually pierces the sound barrier. The sound barrier is in ether. Scientifically, the sound barrier is actually in ether. And that corresponds to exactly what Bhagavatam is saying. Exactly what Bhagavatam is saying. So 5 and 5, we have 10. After that, Bhagavatam tells us there are 10 more senses. These senses are to acquire knowledge. And not only do they acquire knowledge, to acquire knowledge, you need organs of action to act on that knowledge. Isn't it so? And therefore, you have the sense of auditory, hearing. Then you have the sense of taste. Then you have the sense of tactile, touch. Then you have the sense of sight. And finally, you have the sense of smell. They are all there because they give you a chance to actually experience the 10 subtle and gross elements. And then after that, you need the organs of action. Otherwise, you cannot manifest these things. And that's why you have the organ which is working. The working organs. Then you have the traveling organs. Then you have the generating organs. You have the evacuating organs. And you have the speaking organs. So you put all of them together. My maths is not so good, but it's 20 now, isn't it? Now, Krishna creates 4 subtle elements. These 4 subtle elements are very important because without them, they are the glue to all these ingredients. The first thing that is there is our mind. And then there is intelligence. And then there is real ego. This is not false ego. This is real ego. The understanding of who we are. And then there is false ego, which is known as contaminated consciousness. All these 4 are there. So 20 plus 4, 24 ingredients are moving in pradhana state. And right at the appointed time, when Krishna says, now, what happens? Krishna comes into this material world and he injects one very important component. And that is the component of kala, time, the 25th element. And the moment he injects time into the world, time has the way to agitate everything. It agitates everything. And all the elements now come into being on the basis of time. Therefore, without time, these elements remain in the state of pradhana. But add time and they become mahattva. They become manifest by Krishna. And it becomes what we call the cosmic egg. Sometimes it is known as Hiranyagarbha. Sometimes it is known as Hiranyamaya. Right? And very often from Hiranyamaya and Hiranyagarbha will come the universal form of Krishna, which is known in the 2nd canto as the Virat Rupa. You see how beautifully and how systematically this creation has been created. So therefore, again, these elements have no value until Krishna glances. How does he inject time? He injects time by glancing. You and I glance at each other, nothing happens. Nothing happens. You may get a slap if you glance at the wrong person. But other than that, nothing happens. But when Krishna glances, everything becomes agitated. Agitation is not wrong. Agitation in Bhagavatam for purposes of creation translates into activity. Activity. And then, after that happens, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is lying down. And from his navel sprouts a lotus flower. And from that beautiful lotus flower comes the first being created, and that is Brahma. Right? Brahma comes. And when he's born, he wants to know where he's coming from. And he dives deep in. And he searches and searches and searches. And despite all his searching, is he successful? No, he's not. So we may search and search and search, but without the will of Krishna, without his blessings, without his sanction, nothing will happen. So Brahma came all the way up again. A good lesson, right, for all of us. And he sat down and he started meditating on his origins. And he heard the word tapa, tapa. And tapa means austerity. And so he sat down and he put austerity into his life and he meditated. And from his meditation, the Lord manifested in his heart. Right? And once he manifested in his heart, the whole of Bhagavatam came into being. And Krishna spoke Bhagavatam in just 4 Chatushlokas to Brahmaji. And when Brahma was given that powerful set of 4 prayers, he expanded the prayers to become Bhagavatam. And from Bhagavatam, before he started his creation, in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, he started his prayers for creation. And at the end of his prayers, he makes one very important point. Let me always introspect on myself instead of others. And let me pray that I will never have the pride that I am the creator. Now that you know how these ingredients came, is there any doubt who is the creator? Isn't it? It is only Krishna. And now from there, Krishna has given Brahma the potency to create. All the ingredients are ready, time is there, now he becomes master magician. He then begins, just pull out a nail, or just pull this out from here. He pulls out, this is like Pradhana. So, so Brahma now starts putting all the elements together and he begins to create. And in that lotus stem come all the different planets and planetary systems in the universe. And you have all the lower planets, isn't it? You have Atala, Patala, Talatala, all of these. These are the hellish planets, right? These are the lower planets, the Saptarian planets. These are the planets where the Yakshas and all the others, they stay there. In these planets, what's really interesting is no light. The sun cannot penetrate the lower planets. It's too far below. But you know what? The planets are very bright because huge Naga serpents live in these planets. And on each Naga serpent, there are wonderful jewels. And these jewels are so bright that you don't need Surya actually. They are so bright, natural illumination. Frankly speaking, these lower planetary systems are as rich as Swargaloka, right? They are very, very powerful. In fact, Bali Maharaj is in Sutala planet. He's having a good time actually. No problems there. Very, very cushy and very, very illuminated. So those are the one set of planets. Then you have the middle planetary systems. And in the middle planetary systems, one of them is Bhurloka. And this is Earth, right? So we are there in that stem. And the stem is coming from the lotus of Brahma, from the navel of Krishna, as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And this lotus stem is there because Brahma has been evolved. Oh, very nice, Prabhu. And from Brahma being evolved, the lotus stem is there. But don't forget, before that, do a bit of rewinding. The 24 elements had to come. And then they were in Pradhana. And before being in Pradhana, they were all in one universe. They were actually breathed, they were actually taken out from Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And Mahavishnu is coming from second Sankarshan, Second Sankarshan is coming from Narayana. Narayana is coming from Sankarshan. Sankarshan is coming from, and Balaram is coming from
Krishna.
Krishna. So where are we? Where are we? We are really very small. So really, do we have the will to test the will of Krishna? We cannot. We cannot. And then there are the 7 higher planetary systems, right? Janaloka, Mahaloka, and the highest is Satyaloka. Satyaloka. So these are the planetary systems that we are talking about. And all we did today was to speak about one universe. And like that, millions of universes are coming. And Prabhupada says, our universe is the smallest universe. Our Brahma has very little work to do. Therefore, he only has 4 heads. He needs to see only in 4 directions. Prabhupada says other universes are hundreds of times bigger than this universe. And those Brahmas have a lot more work to do. And they have hundreds of heads. Some of them even have thousands of heads. Imagine that. So we are very tiny. The reason why we should understand this so well is to make us understand that we are very insignificant. Otherwise, we will think that we are somebody, but we are actually nobody. That's why we are the servant of the servant of the servant. Not because we are trying to be humble. We have to be humble because we are really nobody. That's why Sankhya Yoga is so important. If you memorize this and understand this, and every day you think you're very big. Oh, I have a team. How big is your team? 4 people. How big is your team? Prabhu, I have 100 people under me. But if you study and remember this diagram, where are we actually? You see? That's the benefit of Sankhya Yoga. We are nothing. We are nothing actually. Just like an ant, to an ant, a human appears very big. We appear huge. Our each step is like mountains for an ant to cross. But actually, we are nothing in front of Krishna. Nothing. Which brings us to the final part of what Prabhupada is speaking in this purport. In the purport, Prabhupada says that actually the living entities take their position according to their previous karmas and action. This is important. Sometimes we think we are here by accident. We think we got a husband or a wife by accident. Of all people to get married to. Of all children to have. Why can't I have children like her or him? Why can't I have a better house? Why can't I change my car? All these things are there. But read the line that Prabhupada has said. Living entities take their position according to previous karmas and actions. So, we are the architects of our fortune and our misfortune. Isn't it so? We are the architects. Whom to blame? We can't blame anyone. We cannot blame anyone. Brahma says very nicely, just like, when you are eating and you're very hungry, sometimes you bite your tongue accidentally. How many of you have done that? Very often, right? Especially when the prasadam is even better. Right? You very quickly, it's very nice. And then you bite your tongue. At that point of time, how do you feel when you bite your tongue? You're very angry, right? Because it's painful. You don't slap the person next to you, do you? And you say, why do you slap me? Oh, because I bite my tongue. You don't do that. You just have to live with it. Right? You live with it. What to do? I'm angry, but what to do? That is our situation. That is our situation. So the next time somebody gives us trouble, don't slap them. You just bit your tongue. Because they are there because of what you have done previously. How long are we going to blame other people and waste our time? Blaming is simply wasting of time. That's very important. One time, Prabhupada had this story. One time, there was this tiger and the rabbit. Tiger and donkey, right? And you know the donkey. Donkey is a celebrated fool in the animal kingdom, right? That's why we always say, if someone compares you to a donkey, is it a compliment? No, right? It's not a compliment. So what happened was, the donkey was arguing with the tiger. No, it was a fox. Donkey was arguing with the fox. And they were arguing and arguing. Why? Because the donkey insisted that the grass it was eating was blue. That's why it's a donkey. And the fox took pains to say to the donkey, it's not blue, it's green. It's green. And they went on and on and on and on until finally the fox said, let's go to the king, lion, and ask him to decide whether grass is green or is blue. Okay, donkey went and with the lion and with the fox. The lion heard both people very carefully, all the arguments of the donkey, all the arguments of the fox. Finally, the king lion reached his verdict. It said, my verdict is very simple. The fox is to be punished, right, with 10 strokes of cane. Donkey, you can go. So the donkey thought, very good, it's blue, and he walked away. The fox turned to the king and said, why did you do that? You know it is green, I know it is green, this donkey thinks it is blue, and I get the beating. How is that possible? And the lion said, I'm not beating you because the grass is green or blue. I'm beating you because you wasted your time with a donkey. And because you wasted so much time arguing over whether it's blue or green, that is why you deserve all the beatings. And that's the point that Krishna is telling us and Prabhupada is telling us. That the actions that are coming to us now are coming from previous lives. And punaha punaha. They are coming even when we are annihilated partially. We come back exactly where we stopped. Exactly where we stopped. Don't mistake that Krishna will forget something, oh, we'll slip by. Nothing. Krishna doesn't forget anything. Anything. So wherever we were in the past, we will come back now. So you may ask, how come then whatever I'm receiving, if I loved it before, why now I'm not happy with it? That's because between now and then, you have cultivated 1,000,000 desires. And we are working backwards from 1 to the million. Maybe 2 lives ago you liked a Maserati car. Now you change your mind to get a Ferrari. And suddenly you decide, why am I getting a Maserati? I don't like it. Maybe you decided that you wanted a wife in a certain way. And after a few years, your requirements for a wife changed. But every desire you had, you'll have a wife for that. So you have 10 wives, and then you're thinking, why am I thinking this way? You see the point? So therefore, we don't realize that every desire you raise in your heart, which has nothing to do with Krishna, a material body is being prepared right now as we speak to experience that desire. It is. It is. And that is why Shastras tell us that the human being, right, has desires, right? The number of desires is as many or more than the number of fine hairs on a cow. Actually, the cow has many fine hairs, microscopically, millions of fine hairs. But Shastras say our desires are more than the fine hairs. The only way to stop this punaha punaha is to actually regulate our desires. How do you regulate your desires? By taking up devotional service. This is the way to do it. If we don't do that, then what will happen is that we will blame the world, blame everyone, and not be self-satisfied. We will never be self-satisfied. And we will waste our time like the fox did with the donkey. And the donkey will go free, and we will get punished by Krishna for wasting time. This is a very important point. Very important point. And just like a donkey that carries sandalwood doesn't realize the value and the aroma of the sandalwood, we have Krishna, we are carrying Krishna, but we don't realize the aroma of Krishna consciousness. Isn't it true? We don't realize it. And that is why this cycle has to stop. Has to stop. So remember, in conclusion, this world is perfectly designed. It's perfectly designed. Nothing wrong with the world. People say the world has famine and drought. But Prabhupada has made it clear there is more than enough for everyone. We have made a mess out of things. But don't blame the world. Someone came to Srila Prabhupada, right? There was an interview. And this interview was famous for asking very very difficult questions and putting down Srila Prabhupada. And so he asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you come from India. I heard in India, the death rate is very high. There's so much poverty and people are dying like anything on the streets. And Prabhupada said, death rate in your country and my country is always the same. It's 100%. Think about it. The rate of death is always the same. It's 100%. The reporter got very astounded. Never heard someone saying that. Then he thought, all right. Then he tried another thing. He said, I heard that your Vedic ideas and Bhagavatam and all, and your scriptures, they actually say, right, that the earth, is actually flat. And it's not spherical. Prabhupada was not caught in that. Prabhupada said, well, wherever I walk, it is flat. That's all I know. I don't know whether it's round or not, but where I'm walking is always flat. You can't walk like that, isn't it? So now the lady, the co-interviewer was with him. She then asked, Swamiji, why do you shave your head? And Prabhupada said, why do you shave your legs? Because the legs was there and it was being shaven. And Prabhupada said, better to have a cool head, right? Better to have a cool head than a hot leg. It is better because a cool head is more important. And then finally this gentleman decided, let me ask you something. If you say that your cosmic design is so perfect and everything is perfectly designed, then how do you plan? Do you really say that this Krishna conscious philosophy that you speak about will bring everybody back to Krishna? Then who's going to be left in this creation? And Srila Prabhupada said, don't worry. There will always be a place in this world for fools like you. You will stay behind. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Gurudev ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Are there any questions, comments? Yes, Mataji. Can we have the mic? Is it on? The number, is it, Prabhu? Oh, the bottom. Yeah. Yes, Mataji, sorry.
Thank you for a wonderful class. So my question was, initially you were mentioning that we need to remember that everything happens in accordance to Krishna's will. And towards the end you were mentioning that we are the architects of where we land. So we are responsible for what we are facing today, what we are going through and which position we are in.
Yes.
So in between all this, there's a tendency to get complacent in our materialistic endeavors, and we don't exercise our grit completely in those aspects. Because any failure comes in, any hurdle comes in, there's a chance to think, oh, this is Krishna's will, I just have to surrender, or think that this is my
Yes.
karma.
Good point. What happens when we are in a situation where we face a hurdle, for example, in life? How do we apply these concepts? The most important way to apply it is the hurdle that is coming for a devotee is an opportunity to remember Krishna. So for a devotee, a hurdle may be difficult, it may be challenging, but the devotee has faith in Krishna. And therefore the devotee sees the hurdle as an opportunity. That's why Vritasur saw this big hurdle before him, Indra. And he did not see Indra as the hurdle. He saw Indra, right, as an instrument. And he saw Krishna as a source of opportunity. So when we meet other people also, we can also tell them if they're not devotees, don't see these hurdles as an obstacle which is insurmountable and that we should just give up. Instead, we should exercise our free will to surmount these obstacles. We must try, but the results are not in our hands. If the result is good, then that is His mercy. But if the result are not good, that is also His arrangement. So in that way, Mataji, we should put these concepts together. everything that happens in this world can only happen with the sanction of Krishna. So even if we decide something, we still need the endorsement of Krishna. A thief can only steal with the sanction of Krishna. But the result of that is not up to Krishna. Krishna is like a neutral judge. In the next verse, right, in the purport, Prabhupada will write there, Krishna is like a neutral judge. Whole day he's doing so many things. He's putting someone in jail, he's hanging somebody, he's freeing someone, he's giving someone wealth, but he's completely unaffected. And all of them cannot say that all this is happening because of the judge. It's not only the judge. They are getting punishment because of their action. They are getting reward because of their action. But the judge is a neutral party who decides what punishment and reward that they will get. Is that helpful? It's a very good question. Any other questions? Yes, Radha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for an amazing class, Prabhu.
Thank you.
2 points. One is a takeaway in terms of when you are speaking about this whole creation and how insignificant we are. The fact that the Lord reciprocates with each one of us despite our insignificance shows how compassionate and how
Wonderful
merciful He is.
realization. That's very
one
true.
point.
We can be very small, and yet Krishna never forgets each one of us.
That was one. And the second thing is a question. Prabhu, quite often we find that, again, in the context of what you spoke about Krishna's will and how he is the superintendent, okay, and our will is always subordinated to Krishna's will. Very often in the course of our devotional service, say for example, in the course of our preaching activities, right, we are trying to reach out to certain people with the intention of spreading Krishna consciousness, but then the outcome is not up to our expectation.
Yes.
Right? Now, so the will is oriented in the path of Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
But then again, Krishna does not sanction it at times
Yes.
because the outcome is not up to our expectation.
Yes.
So how do we interpret that? Is it an outcome of? Do we interpret it as a failure on our part by way of our sadhana not being perfect, or we not being purified enough,
Yes.
or that the particular individual who we are trying to reach out to has not accumulated enough sukriti to get that?
Very good question. That's a difficult one, isn't it? How do we know which is which? Actually, we wouldn't know, Prabhu. It is very difficult to know, actually. If you think of it practically, we won't know. But a devotee introspects. So if someone he's preaching to cannot become a devotee or takes time, the devotee doesn't blame that person. The devotee looks at himself and says, maybe my quality of devotional service should improve. And maybe I should do better. But the devotee doesn't do that, Prabhu, in such a way that he becomes or she becomes discouraged. There's a line also we should draw. Sometimes we are so humble that we beat ourselves to the ground. That humility is not useful. We should always have confidence that Krishna will empower us to do it. So there must be a balance. We must think, maybe somebody is not coming to Krishna consciousness because my preaching is not effective. Let me learn to improve my preaching. Maybe I learn some techniques, I study more, I read more. Let me work there. So we are constructive. But even after doing that, and still they cannot come, then we should understand that we are instruments of Krishna. We have planted seeds into the hearts of these living entities. But when they come to Krishna, it's really up to Krishna. Gradually all the anarthas are going from them, but they may need more time. Just like we also needed some time to come to Krishna. But some patient devotee never gave up on us, continued, and one day they came. Sometimes we have seen devotees whom we preach to have become much more advanced than us also. They are just charging ahead and we are still struggling with whatever we are doing. So this, I think, is a good balance. Taking both principles of surrender, confidence, and understanding that everyone is Krishna conscious essentially. But it's only a matter of time when it is manifest. Another way of putting it is, they are in pradhana state. And later, let bhakti manifest. It will come. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
So to all the preachers, never be discouraged. Never, Whatever we are doing is always pleasing to Krishna. If you can speak just one line about Krishna to the person next to you, already he is so pleased. And you are putting buckets of blood and sweat how much more He will be pleased. Definitely. So please be encouraged. Someone else had something? Navagana Prabhu? And someone else had put up their hand. Who is it so I will not miss it? Did someone put up their hands? Okay, Prabhu, yes. We have Navagana and then Prabhu and then we can end. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, my question is about you mentioned about the desires and
Yes.
the body is created out of desires. So there's a common saying that we can achieve a goal only when we plan for it, when we work towards
We can achieve a goal when we plan for it. Yes.
So, and that also, it begins with a desire to achieve that goal.
Yes.
So, but this is a bit kind of a situation where we see that, it can create another material body or a desire. This desire can create material body.
Sure.
So, how do we, and then you mentioned about regulating the desires. Maybe you could elaborate a bit. In
Okay.
this.
When we say regulating our desires, it means, for example, we are working. All of us are mostly working. Or we are housewives, but we have some dharma to do. Now, we have to perform it well, because it is our duty to do it. As we perform it, in the scope of our work, there's so many things we have to do. We cannot be desireless when we do that. For example, if we need to achieve a certain score for a company, we need to put our heart into it. And heart translates into desire. But because we are doing it to the best of our ability, but if our sadhana is good, if our devotional service is good, Krishna helps us to regulate the desire such that it is required for the work, but it doesn't linger on after that. You see? So I need to win a case. I must develop the determination and desire to win it. That's part of the scope of the job. But after that, if I allow this desire to continue, then it's beyond the scope of the job. So we regulate our desires. No one can be desireless, Prabhupada says. But desiring for something, right, which cannot be achieved is lust. 6:16:34, Prabhu. We'll see that purport. Just to answer this point. 6:16:34. Just go down, Prabhu. It's a long purport. I think it's the second paragraph. Just skip slowly. Happiness, distress, go down a bit. Therefore, okay, interrupted, yes. Pampered, okay. Offer service, can conquer. Okay, next paragraph, yes. Slowly. Okay, devotees aspire. Devotees know, okay, eternally servants, never to be one with him. Go down a little bit. Samamati, okay, they know, there we are. They have no lusty desires for oneness, okay. Their desire is to be free from all material hankering. Prabhu, that's our desire. That's how we regulate our desire. The desire to be free from material hankering is a bona fide desire. So every time we have to desire for something, throw in this desire. Go on. Therefore, they are called nishkama, desireless. See what Prabhupada says, amazing statement. A living entity cannot exist without desires. But desires that can never be fulfilled are called karma, lusty desires. That's it. Think about it. How many times we have developed desires in our heart, tried to fulfill them, standing upside down on our heads, but we cannot fulfill them. We are not happy, even if they come. That is karma. That is lusty desires. Those desires must be stopped. Is that helpful? Just one line, isn't it? Just one line from Prabhupada, and it